All right. What is up, guys? Welcome to Bleav in Rams, part of the Bleav Network. Aaron Coscarelli back with you. Be sure to subscribe, comment, rate, follow this podcast. We're always checking in to see what you guys have to say, what questions you're asking, what thoughts, comments, concerns you may have about the Rams. They've got a big wildcard matchup against the Vikings. Joining me now is Vikings team reporter. We've had her on before, Tatum Everett, joining the show. Tatum, thank you so much for jumping on. How you doing today?
As always, doing well. Obviously all of our thoughts and prayers out to you guys in LA. That is just, it's tough to watch. It's tough to see happen to people. And I know it's causing a lot of confusion about where to go next and what to do next with this game, because there are a lot more other important things we need to worry about right now. But
I know.
But you know, it's a tough time. So I want to say that first off the bat. Everyone here in Minnesota is thinking about you guys.
Yeah, Tatum, thank you. People in Minnesota, very nice, as I've experienced when I was there for the Super Bowl. Tatum's referring, of course, to the fires. There's 4 of them, may even be more. I haven't had a chance to watch the news. I'm here in Southern California. My own family had to be evacuated this morning. Today is Wednesday. We're filming this on Wednesday at 4 a.m. She's close to the Eaton Canyon fire. I have never known so many people to have actually lost homes. It is devastating. So we appreciate your thoughts and prayers from Minnesota. And you mentioned it. The NFL is watching what's going on in Los Angeles. They released a statement just moments ago saying the priority is the safety of the LA community. We're grateful for the tireless efforts of the first responders. Shout out to people who have to do that and get in line. It's devastating to have to deal with what the winds are 80 to 100 miles per hour. But they're continuing to monitor whether or not the game will actually get played here in Los Angeles. A contingency plan, as they stated in this statement, is Monday night could be played at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. They're going to continue to monitor the situation as developments are made. But that is the most recent statement released by the NFL. Tatum and I were mentioning earlier before the show, most likely it'll happen in LA. Winds, I can speak to it now because I'm here in LA. They have died down. Hopefully they don't continue to pick up. But again, it is hard to talk about football when things like this happen around the world, around the country. So our thoughts and prayers are with the people that are impacted by the Southern California fires. With that, I do want to get into the game because we do, and it's nice to be able to give something and have something to talk about so people can have their minds off of these sort of frustrating situations in
Aaron, those things kind of galvanize people sometimes when they go through hardships like that. It gives them something to take their minds off of what goes on. And I mentioned this before we got on, but I'm New Orleans born and raised, and obviously far from home now, but have dealt with my fair share of natural disasters and such. And so sometimes a team can make you feel like you can take your mind off of it if it's only just for 3 hours. And so I hope that it's going to be something that the fans can focus on despite what's going on. I don't want to sound insensitive to what's going on, but I know sometimes it's nice to just have a little bit of relief.
Yeah. And the Rams are really great. They've got a great organization called Rams in the Community. No doubt they will be doing all kinds of things to effort some support to the community who are impacted by the fires. Before we get into the game with Tatum, we're with Tatum Everett, the Vikings team reporter. Let's get a quick ad read because this is important to mention. The team is the higher seed and at home, and yet the Vikings are the favorite. The Rams are actually the underdog. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. The largest selection of odds on everything football, NBA, college basketball, you name it, they've got it. Head to BetOnline today. And don't forget to use the promo code Bleav for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. It is really interesting. I know it's an ad read, but it is really funny if you think about it. A wild card, 14-team wild card team heading on the road and playing the underdog, who is the 3 seed. I mean, it's a head scratcher, but it makes a lot of sense. You guys, after you lost to the Rams week 8, went on a tear and went on a 9-game winning streak. Let me ask you this first question. How is this team different since the Rams first saw them week 8?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like they know how to win in more ways than just how they started out the season. I felt like this team came out to big leads, they held on, and then they would finish the game. And that's kind of was their recipe for success for that first few weeks until they met with Detroit. They had that super physical game against the Lions in week 7, had a short week, came to play the Rams, who are extremely healthy, and it just didn't turn out well for them. So they had those back-to-back losses before, as you mentioned it, going on that 9-game win streak. And during that win streak, they would play from behind. They would win close ones at the end. They just found different ways to win. If the offense wasn't having a good game, like in Jacksonville, the special teams carried them with all of the field goals because they couldn't score touchdowns. And there were games where the defense needed to step up if the offense couldn't play, or vice versa. And so I think that they just found how to be a complete team. A lot of the talk around that winning streak was we still don't feel like we've played our best complete game yet. And I really don't think they feel like they have in those 14 wins, which is kind of surprising so far. It's definitely a dangerous team to be playing, but there's a lot of tape out there now that you can get to them and rattle them, and it's going to be a really fun chess match between those two offensive minds against the two defensive guys. So
yeah, a chess match, and that's why it's fun. I mean, it was fun week 8, and it'll be fun for the wild card. When you say, I don't think, has Kevin O'Connell actually beaten Sean McVay? I don't think he has, right? This will be their third matchup against each other.
I Bleav that is so.
Yeah.
I would have to check. I know this one. I can't remember the last time they played. Was it 2 years ago? Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to do that research.
I think that Sean McVay has had Kevin O'Connell's number, but that's what's so interesting is, and we were talking about it earlier about coaching candidates, coaches of the year, and how both of those guys deserve the nomination, or certainly the recognition for how they bailed their team out despite all of these sort of hindrances and issues that have plagued the team. The Rams fortunately got out of a hole. Remember, they started 1-4, then they had the bye, then they played the Vikings, and they had a lot of injuries early on in the season. That's why everybody counted the Rams out. So it's, when you think about the Rams and who they are now, it's such a different team because they haven't had the combination of offensive line that gelled together and made sense. I think it felt like every single game they were learning something about the team. And like you said, they were finding different ways to win, whether it was on the back of their running back and Kyron Williams, whether it was the defense and their turnovers. It's really interesting that the way the Rams got here was dropping to that 4 seed and then having to face Sam Darnold and the Vikings again. Let's talk about Sam Darnold, because I want to ask you about his future. But first, this is a team inside and out. You've been covering them all season. What happened against the Lions? And, it had to have been one of Sam Darnold's worst, season lows in completion rate, passing yards. He didn't have a great game. And
really didn't. Yeah, it didn't seem like he had the rhythm. The thing was, as many times as they went in I think the red zone struggles were the most glaring of what happened, because they were 11 of 14. Like, they scored in 14 trips in the red zone. They scored 11 touchdowns before the Lions game. So they were almost automatic when they get into that territory. And it was just kind of befuddling to see the struggles that they had against the Lions. I Bleav it was 4 trips and they had, 2 field goals coming out of that. Sam Darnold felt, I think, a lot of pressure. I think that he, and maybe I mean that more physically, like there were lions in his face, and the way that they were covering Justin Jefferson, it was like everywhere you look, there was a man in that vicinity, and not just one, mainly 2. They covered Justin and Jordan Addison kind of the same. And I Bleav the interior protection wasn't as good as it normally is. And I think it was just kind of like all of that it just did not serve well for Sam Darnold. There were plenty of open receivers throughout the game. There were a lot of missed catches. They were balls that 9 times out of 10 get caught in this game, and the one time they didn't was this game, right? So like it was just kind of one of those things where they just could not get over it. I mean, at one point, Andrew Van Ginkel almost ties the game, and they were in it because of their defense for so long. When you're not playing complimentary football, that defense was just gassed by the end. So the score is not truly indicative of what happened out there, because it was a very competitive game for the first, 3 or 2.5 quarters. And then by the time the offense couldn't sustain any drives, the defense would get too tired, and then they were off the field. So it was not a great time to have one of those games, but they've said all week, like, we're not going to shy away from it. We're looking in the mirror. We're holding ourselves accountable. We're figuring out why, and we're moving on, which is what they have been doing.
Yeah. And that's all you can do. They got to move on. And it's interesting, both these teams facing each other under 2 totally different circumstances. McVay opting to rest his starters. And, you guys are just going right through it. And, trying to have a short-term memory and play a Rams team that is an interesting team right now, certainly, and at home. And that's never easy. It's a hostile work environment for sure. Let me ask you about Sam Darnold. How attached are you to him? Because, how do you think this game or how he does will impact his future in Minnesota?
It's tough for me to say. As I work for the team, I don't have too many insights on what goes on in that front office. That's not something I speculate about in my position. And all I can really say is that this facility and this team loves the guy. I've spoken to so many different players who have said, he's our guy. He's just someone, he's easy to follow. His leadership style is easy to follow. He's a guy's guy. We'll do anything for that guy. And, I think that's just kind of the vibe you get from them. He's got a short memory. I think that his time in the league and what he has experienced before here has taught him to move on quickly, has taught him to have that mental fortitude that you have to have as a quarterback in the NFL. And, I don't know what the future holds here, because I think he's made it rather difficult for this front office to make a decision. Just this week, actually, the Vikings signed Daniel Jones to their active roster. Now, I think that's more of, trying to get some value back in him when maybe teams want Daniel Jones or whatever his future is. You can get a comp pick, things like that, if he ends the season as an active roster member. And so I think that's part of it, but it's going to be an extremely fun offseason to figure this out, especially after the Vikings go on to the Super Bowl, to figure that out. But if they do, what a decision this team has to make. And I think it might be a stressful one, but at least you're in this position. Because
that's so true.
There was just so much uncertainty surrounding what can Sam Darnold do. And I think that's why people thought the Vikings would win 6.5. Like, that's what the Vegas odds were, 6.5 wins. So I think that was one of the number one reasons that people did not believe in this team. And they looked at them and they said, try us, and I think that's just kind of how that's unfolded.
Yeah. Look, it's a good problem to have, right? I mean, you have the heir apparent and a good option in Darnold. It's not an easy choice. I don't envy your guys' front office, but certainly could have no quarterbacks, and then that's really a not fun situation to
right. And you still don't exactly know, I think, what you have in Daniel and JJ as far as like a game working environment. JJ McCarthy was amazing in those couple of preseason games or drives that we saw him in, but that's really the only sample size you have. And then with Daniel Jones, I think it's a smart move. You can kind of get him in here, get him to know the offense, kind of like have an advanced process of getting to know someone who could interest you in the future, but at the same time, what are you going to do? Like, Sam Darnold is having an incredible season, one that's rivaling some. Jared Goff has their numbers are so similar. You see that he's having better passing numbers than Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So you're seeing all this. He's setting franchise records for passer ratings within the organization. So it's going to be a tough call.
Listen, Baker, the opinion no one asked for, I'm going to say it anyways, though, is like, if what Kevin O'Connell can do for Sam Darnold can sprinkle that same magic with a Daniel Jones, I think we think at this point anything is possible. Look at what happened to Baker Mayfield, right? He was a castaway, Browns and then the Panthers, and then he took a year with Sean McVay. He was under Sean McVay
Very
for
interesting,
one
yeah.
season. The tutelage of a Sean McVay, I would say, could be similar to a guy like Kevin O'Connell. So I think for Daniel Jones, it's a no-brainer for him to go under some type of quarterback whisperer, as we've seen with what Kevin has been able to do with Sam Darnold. So
To
I
your
think it's
point,
smart.
Aaron, if you remember, Sam Darnold did the same thing with the 49ers last year and got Shanahan. I don't know if that's even a term, but that seems cool. And he had that year there before he came here. And he said that he learned so much more in his 1 year in San Francisco than he learned in his previous 5 or 6 seasons combined, because as a backup quarterback, you're preparing each and every week like you're ready to go in, but you're not. So he learned so much about the position and what is needed and how those styles of offense work. And to your point, I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're backup whisperers. Take the pay cut.
Yeah.
Go under a coach that really has the ability to, revitalize your career, like Sean McVay did for Baker Mayfield. And even Jimmy Garoppolo said that's why he signed with LA this year, because he wanted to get tutored and coached by a guy like Sean McVay. So I agree with you. It will be a very interesting offseason for Tatum. You better be following her, because she will be spilling the tea on all things Vikings during the offseason. Real quick before I let you go, I do want to sort of get your take on what Rams fans can either look forward to or not look forward to when the Vikings come to town. What would you say in your camp, you're hearing? How will the Vikings try to exploit the vulnerabilities of the Rams? And then on the flip side, if you don't mind, would love to know how you think the Rams, where the weaknesses are among the Vikings. So, but first, I'm curious to get your take on.
So we haven't actually had any availability with our players just yet. They've been in the building for a couple of days. I spoke to safety Josh Metellus today. He knows that this Rams team is super stacked offensively, ready for a quarterback who's previously won a Super Bowl. The receivers, the tight end, Kyron Williams is really, really talented. And so they know that is what is going to happen, and that they're going to go up against that. And they are watching the tape from, back on week 8. However, they're mainly going to start watching what they've seen in the last few weeks when the Rams have really, really had it cooking. And so after talking with him, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from them. They know this is single elimination. And what I would expect from this Vikings team is the same thing that you've been seeing for a while. This is a team that, as boring as that sounds, they treat it 1-0. They stick to the plan. They do their intentional small things throughout the week. They stick to a very strict routine. Kevin O'Connell's always joked that he knows exactly what Sam Darnold is and where he's doing it at all times of every day, 24/7, because he sticks to that much of a routine. So I think that's what you're going to expect. But I'll give the Rams fans just one fun thing to look for. This Vikings team, this isn't the fun part. The Viking team has had a takeaway in every single one of their games this season. 33 in total. They're tied for first in the league. But they're the only team with 1 in each game. And if it is compliments of, well, they're probably going to do it anyway, but if it's compliments of Cam Bynum, who's a California native, or Josh Metellus, you can expect one of those generational dances that they've put on that they're so well known for. I actually know which one they have prepared.
Ooh.
And it's a good one, but I can't say.
You can't tell us. You can't spill the tea. You mean we have to watch the game to
as long
see?
as it's the same one as last week, because they weren't able to do it. They had that. I think Ivan Pace had an early interception, and they weren't able to. They didn't do the generational dance, but it's going to happen. And honestly, that's one of the most fun parts about being a Vikings fan, is seeing that unfold.
Yeah, it is. It is the creativities of the sack dance or the turnover dance or just any type of dance. certainly shows that the NFL and their players are very creative. Hopefully they don't do the dance just as a Rams homer. I'm like, wait, I'm actually rooting for them to do the dance. No, that's not good. Stop it. Stop it. No. It'll be fun. And yeah, these teams have history. These teams have familiarity, obviously, within the coaching positions. And that's really funny about the relationship between Sam Darnold and Kevin. I almost think Coach has probably an air tag on I would by the way, I think
maybe
if I was
that's
a coach,
the real secret.
if I was a coach, I think I'd probably have air tags on all my football players just to make sure they stay out of trouble and they're home studying like a good player. So then on the flip side, where do you see that the Vikings have some vulnerabilities? Where do you think the Vikings are still not shored up? Obviously, we saw the game against the Lions. It was not a great performance from Sam Darnold. So he's looking for a bounce back game in a town that he's very familiar with, obviously Sam Darnold playing at USC. But, there are some vulnerabilities, I would say, for the Rams. They start slow. Their offense has not been clicking as of late in terms of momentum and, moving things down the field. They've really struggled, certainly in the first quarter. There's some crazy number. I think it's like 11 straight games or something crazy like that. But they're just not efficient. They end up having to play from behind, except for I think maybe, the game that they played against the Vikings, they came out hot. But yeah, where would you say you think the Rams have some of those?
Yeah, this Vikings team is a super confident bunch. It's hard to pinpoint one thing because I feel like every game, it's something different. I feel like when one is underperforming, the other kind of picks the other one up, and so I think it's really hard to pinpoint just one thing right now. It's a team that is really focused on protection. They really want to make sure that they keep Sam clean. They're focused on getting a good rhythm going. They want to make sure Sam is marrying his eyes with his feet, that he has enough time to do so. And I think it all really starts with Aaron Jones in the backfield and getting that run game going. Mm-hmm. Another name that's going to be playing against the Rams, Cam Akers, who was on the Super Bowl team a few years back. And so he's back in there. Aaron, he's been in the game a lot more, doing some really exciting things. Defensively, this team has actually gotten a little bit better at man coverage the last few weeks than they were when they played the Rams. So I would look for a little bit more of that. So maybe that makes it a little bit more difficult to figure out how they're going to cover you. But overall, it's hard for me to say because this team, they just seem to be able to cover each other's mistakes up because they all are focused on that one job they have to do. And if they just stay in their lane and do their job, if something were to go awry, the others will be right there to pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this team knows each other, but it's a reunion. It's a new reunion of sorts. And I cannot wait to watch this wild card matchup against the Vikings and the Rams in LA at home. You said if the game does end up happening here, you get on the road. You're heading to LA Sunday, right?
Yeah, okay. we travel on Sundays and leave right after. So it'll be a nice, lovely Tuesday morning when we get home.
Are you gonna do a little yoga and some avocado toast just to get into the,
I might have
LA
to.
frame of
I may
mind?
have
Yeah,
to.
you should.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy my trips out to California. It's one of my favorites. We seem to make a trip over to the NFL Network offices once a year at least, and so just being out there and not having to be in, I don't even know what degree it is right now. It's probably like 11 degrees or something. So not having to be in that is also like really high on my list.
I love it. I love it. I love Tatum Everett of the Vikings team reporter with a breakdown of the wild card matchup. The Rams have to deal with them. They have 14 wins. That is the most for a wild card team in the playoffs. It's always so much fun chopping it up with you. I know how busy you are. I really appreciate you making the time and giving the people here in LA something else to think about other than what's going on here with the California fires.
Yes. Anytime you guys want me on, y'all are very lucky to have Aaron as a host, and it's awesome. It's great catching up with you guys.
All right. Tatum Everett, thanks again for jumping on. Safe travels to LA, and we will speak soon.
Sounds good.